Hey everybody, how's it going? I'm glad y'all are joining me in this video. So I recently had just finished the game animation sample project from scratch, and I saw that the analytics of people viewing or liking my series or some certain videos of my series, and one of the things that I took note of is how people are specifically looking for certain things like the sprinting, the how to crouch, the how to aim, how to strafe, stuff like that. And so, it made me think about doing a video for sprinting and how to actually implement that and get the animations and stuff set up for it. So, one of the things real quick that I wanted to briefly talk about was the fact that the reason why the sprint is a work in progress in the game animation sample project after having completed it from scratch, the character blueprint part, is the fact that there's no animations set for the sprinting. So if we go, and I'll show you just that real quick. So if we go into content and we go to characters, UEFN, and animations, you can see that we have some aiming offsets, we have crouch animations, we have idle, we have jump, we have run, traverse, and walk. So as you can see, there's no sprint folder, and that's because they are trying to implement sprint animations into this in their 5.5 update whenever that decides to come out. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to run through how to set up databases for sprinting, as well as put those in the chooser table, and then taking a look at the input action to see what it's doing and getting our gate selection set up to be able to briefly sprint and our character doesn't crash out. So I will give you a quick example of what I mean by crashing out. So if we open up the CBP sandbox character, if you go into your event graph and you go to update movement, and then here in the get desired gate function, the peer function, if you go into here, when we take a look at the get desired gate functionality, basically what it's going through is we're getting vector lengths of the move input and the world space input to get like a 0 or 1 value. And if we do, then what we're going to do is do fixed speeds, and basically we're going to set it into a bool variable, basically saying, hey, do we have full stick deflection or not? So basically it's joystick related. So because if you're pressing a keyboard button, you're going to obviously have a full 1 value or a full 0 value because you're either pressing it or you're not. For the joystick, you're basically setting joystick deflection, so you can push or pull the joystick ever so slightly forward, backward, left, right, whatever, and you don't necessarily get a full 1 value. So that's what this is doing, is determining whether we have a full stick deflection based off of our threshold, which is set to 70% or 0.7. So you should see this first return node in the get desired gate, where I have it set here in sprint just because I was messing around with it earlier just to try to get this ready for y'all. So it should be set to run right off the gate, but this is where you will set up the sprint, because what this is checking for is if we want to sprint and if we have a full stick deflection or a full movement input. So we'll go and cast into the sprint, and then if we don't have a full movement input or full stick deflection, then we will technically run if we're trying to sprint without a stick deflection of more than 0.7 or 70%. So going back, we're not going to look at that just yet or implement it because we got to check some other stuff. So I'm going to open the content drawer, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to content, characters, and then UEFN mannequin, animations, and we're going to look at motion matching data, because what we're going to do is we're going to set up a sprint database based off of the run animations, just that way we have something until you either get your own sprint animations or we wait for the sprint animations to come out in 5.5 if they come out in 5.5. So in motion matching data, go ahead and open up databases and then dense, and what we're going to do in here is we're going to create a new folder called sprint, and I'm going to give it _WIP, meaning work in progress, because technically this is a work in progress, but what we're going to do is get ready our sprint databases for the 5.5 release. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in the search box run, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy all of these runs and I'm going to put them into the sprint work in progress folder. So go ahead and click one, and I'm going to click one and then shift click to highlight all of these, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to, where is it? There should be a copy. So if you don't see copy, well, there's copy reference, but what I'm going to do instead is let me re-click them, and I'm going to do Control C, and I'm going to go back. Oop, I should have just gotten rid of run. I'm going to go back into Dents and then Sprint Work in Progress. I'm going to hit V to paste all of the run animations in here, or databases in here. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to check these real quick just to make sure. So we have our run stops, looks like, and then we have, so everything else should be fine then since we've copied it. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hit Control Shift S to save all these real quick. And then now I'm going to either press F2, or you can do right click and hit rename, but I'm going to press F2 for the quick button or the hotkey to rename these. And what we're going to do is we are going to go to every one of them, and we're going to delete the run and call it sprint for all of these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to either cut this out or speed through it, but y'all need to go through each individual one of these and replace the run with the sprint. So I will be right back once I do that. All right, guys, I am back. So I have renamed all of these to sprint. So like I said, again, we're just copying the run animation since that's what we have at the moment to be able to utilize this, but I've just renamed them all to sprints. That way we can just go ahead and have these as our declared sprint databases for, you know, later in case you do get sprint animations, or when the game animation sample project gets updated and comes out with these sprint animations. So once you have this, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go back into motion matching data, and we're going to look for these post-search databases dents, because we've copied a lot of the dents animations. So we're going to use, or these databases we're going to use in here. And so if you don't know the difference between the post-search databases sparse and the post-search databases dense, basically it's the amount of animations within each database. So if we do a comparison, so let me open up I'm going to do a run loops and open that up real quick. And then I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to go into databases and go to sparse and do, let's see, where's the run loops in here? Yeah, loops here. So as you can see, what we have is we have a few missing loops, just because what it's not doing is including more of the angles and stuff like that. But pretty much it's going to have like the similar ones, but it cuts out a few extra ones, or doesn't give you like the full set of the different run animations or like idle animations, stuff like that. It may have certain ones involved, or it may just cut a certain amount out. So once we check that, let's go back and go to motion matching data. And like I said, we're going to choose the dense database search. So I'm going to mount this real quick. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a row right here, and we're going to look for nested chooser. So if you don't know what a nested chooser is, basically in motion matching table, a nested chooser allows you to have multiple, well, not multiple instances, but it allows you to layer your selections to get the best animation possible. So as you can see right here in the first part, we have the movement mode, the stance, the state, and the gate. And basically where they're getting this first is they're getting it from structure files that are housed here in the content drawer. If we go to content, blueprints, and data, basically this is where you're going to get the different things right here, the different selections. So we got movement mode, state, mode, and stance. However, those are actually being called in the event graph of the animation blueprint right here in the update states function. So when you actually look at it, you'll see where we have movement mode on ground, movement mode in air, rotation mode, stuff like that, movement state, gate, stance. So we're not calling the rotation mode, but we are calling everything else. So that's where it's getting those updates, because you're not, as far as I'm aware of, you're not able to do motion matching tables from these character blueprint as far as I'm aware of, because it has to go through like the animation sandbox in order to get the animations. And I think it's because of the class that we have it tied to, but as far as I'm aware of, we can only pick animations unless you can do something, but I got to do more research for that for you guys in order for me to understand to teach y'all that. So, but as you can see, so we have one layer, but then say we go into stand runs, right? If we hit edit, then we have another layer of a chooser table, which goes into more stuff to be able to appropriately get our animation database or our schema database. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to copy the stand run stuff, right? So we're going to get our starts, we're going to get our loops, we're going to get our pivots, etc., etc. The only one we're not putting in here is the stops, because that one goes into the idles right here, because you can see walk stops, run stops, etc. So let's go ahead and in this chooser, we're going to do none. We're going to click on the none drop down and we're going to do new nested chooser. And we're going to call it stand sprints, just to match it with everything else. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it and I'm going to click on the little dots over here so I can move it up and put it under the runs. So now on here, what we're trying to do is let's check our movement mode and make sure that it equals on ground, because we're not sprinting in the air, we're sprinting while we're on the ground. Then in our stance, what we want to check to make sure that we're standing and not crouched. So it equals stand. So if that's good, then we can move on to state and check if we're idle or moving. So we want to make sure that we equal moving, because you can only sprint when you're moving. You're not sprinting when you're idle. Then lastly, we're going to choose our gate, and gate basically is the different cycles or movement patterns that people have. And what we're going to choose in here for the sprint, obviously, is the sprint gate. So we're going to make sure that we equal sprint, because we are sprinting to get that. So then once you have that, we're going to edit this and we're going to add several columns to this first. So go ahead and you're going to add, let me see. So let's go back into the stand runs and we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Boolean columns. So we're going to get the is starting, is pivoting, just traverse, just landed light, just landed heavy, should spin transition. So we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's go ahead and go back into our stand runs and we're going to add 6 Boolean columns. So go ahead and do that real quick. So I got 3, 4, 5, 6. So now that we got 6 Boolean columns, we're going to go ahead and go through it. So as you can see, our ABP sandbox is here for selection for binding. So what we want here is the is starting, just like in the runs. We want the is pivoting. And we want the is, I believe it was just traverse. Let me go back into the runs. So yeah, we want the just traverse, landed light, landed heavy, and span transition. So just traversed. Let's see, go back into sprint. So just traversed. Let's see, just landed light. And then we want the just landed heavy and the should spin transition. So now, once we have that, let's go ahead and get all of our sprint assets. So go ahead and click add row, and we're going to choose asset for this one, and we're going to do it for all of them, and we're going to search for sprint, and we're going to get let's do the starts first. Then once we do that, let's go ahead and click this again, the add row, and do another asset, and let's grab sprint again, and we're going to do loops, and then grab a new row, grab a new asset row, and we're going to do pivots on this one. And then for add row, I believe, let's see, if we go back to run, so we got the starts, loops, pivots, and then spin transition, from traversal, and then light heavy. So spin transition and from traversal are next. So go ahead and add row, asset, and look for sprint. And we're going to look for spin transition, then add another row. We're going to do the sprint again, and we're going to do the, from traversal. And then we get to get 2 more assets, and I'm going to just do that real quick. And then here we're going to get the, lands light, and the last one is the sprint lands heavy. So that's how we get it in here. So now, just to kind of match what we're doing, so we're going to check that if we are starting, meaning that we have gathered acceleration, and then we have a certain speed threshold, like above a certain amount, to indicate that we're starting. So, and then we're pivoting. That's another variation of stuff that they're code that they're doing, or calculations that they're doing in the animation blueprint to get that, just like the traverse, slanted lightly, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and go back into these stand runs, and what we're going to look at is these selections. So it looks like there's a lot of any stuff because it can go either way for a lot of these, but it looks like for our is starting, they only have true for the first one because you are starting. So let's go back into our sprint, and we're going to set this to true. So if we are starting, this is going to be a hard true, and we're going to grab the starts option. So then next, if I go back into runs, or is pivoting, we want to set true to pivot and false for spin transitions, because technically with spin transitions, you're not pivoting, you're just turning around. So we're going to do true to pivot and false to spin transition. So go back into there. So spin transition is false and pivot is true. So now if we go back into stand runs again, we have true for from traversal on the just traversed. So let's go ahead and go back in there. So just traversed from traversal, set that to true. Now if we go back into run and look at our landed light, it looks like a lot of this is set false, and the only ones that are different are the spin transition and the landed light. So we're going to set everything to false except for landed light and the spin transition. So let's go ahead and go back in there and set everything to false first, just so it's easy. And then the lands light, we want to change to true. And then the spin transition, we're changing to any. And so basically with the landed heavy, it's going to be the same. So let's do everything to false first, but we're going to do true for landed heavy, and it should be any for the spin transition as well. So let me double check that to make sure. Yep, spin transition any, and then landed heavy false. And then last but not least, the should spin transition, as you can see, it's set to any for all of them. So if we go back into sprint, let's just double check it. If we move over, yep, it's set to all of that. So once you have that set, go ahead and hit Control-Shift-S to save everything, or just go ahead up here to save just this chooser table. And then let's hop back into the character blueprint. So going back to the get desired gate, so in order to get there, you have to go to the event graph, go to update movement, and then the pure get desired gate. And then you will go to this return node, and you're going to set this to sprint, because if we want to sprint and we have a full button press or a full stick deflection on the controller, then we obviously want to sprint. So once you have changed that, go ahead and compile and save. And then lastly, what we are going to do is let's double check our sprint. So if we go down here to our input action, yeah, it is connected. So when we trigger this or trigger this action, it's going to go through here and set this accordingly, and it's going to set once to walk to false. The action value, what this is going to do is once we trigger this, it is going to then set this to true. And the way it's doing that is if we go to the content drawer and let's go to be character, or no, it should be, let me go back. It should be content, input, and then if we go, where is the sprint? Right here, the input action sprint, you should see that we have pressed and released for our input action. So upon pressing, that action value will send over a true value to our once to sprint, so that way we are true that we are sprinting. And then upon releasing it, that trigger will refire and tell it that, hey, we do not no longer want to sprint, that is false, and then kick us out of the sprint. So now that you have those set up, and let's check our movement input. So if we go back to the input, I'm going to look at the motion matching just to make sure that our sprint is what we want it to be. So yeah, for me, it's perfect. It's left shift. So now that we have that, we can go ahead and then hit the play to test this out. So as you can see, we're currently running right now, but as soon as I hit shift, we speed up and go a little bit faster. So as we can see, the shift does work, and it's utilizing our run transitions or our run animations in order to do a sprint. We're just going a little faster. And so the way we're getting these speeds is if we go into the character blueprint, we go back into the update movement, You can see right here the calculate max speed. If we go in here, this sprint value is what we're getting when we hit sprint. So if you haven't checked out my game animation sample project from scratch, if you want to learn what everything is doing, basically I break down every section and what everything means and how it is actually working. So if you want more information, go ahead and check out that collection of videos just to see what it all is doing. But if you ever want to modify your speeds, you will modify it in here. So basically, here our X value is our forward value, and that is going to be set to 700. So if you want to, if you're running forward, this is the speed that you want to adjust for forward speed. So if you, this is where you would put it to 1000 or 800 or anything like that if you're trying to sprint faster forward. Y is what you're going to do your side-to-side sprint. So when you go through this motion, it's also going to do strafing. So if you're strafing, it'll then do different speeds. So of course it's all set to 700 just because it's a default value and they don't have everything set up yet. However, in my GASP from scratch project that I did and showcased, that I changed this to 650 just to have a little bit more of a realistic strafing speed, and then I had changed this to 600. But you're more than welcome to modify these values to any that you want. So if I modify the X value to, let's say, 1000 and hit compile and save, if I then start playing, you can see like how much we're zooming now. Like it is super fast. But then also too, you can see that it starts getting a little bit clunkier and trying to find montages if you try to activate stuff early because of how we're running. But then if I shift, we slow down a little bit. We still go really fast, but it's going to be at like 700 speed. But you can see that we still go super fast. And it failed at that part just because we were so fast that it failed to find the montage. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down to 700 so that way it doesn't break on me next time. So that is pretty much it, guys, for a quick tutorial on how to set up Sprint with the Game Animation Sample Project. So thank you all for joining, and I will see y'all in another video. So thank y'all and take care. Goodbye. Hey everybody, real quick, this is from future me. I realized that I did forget something in the sprints tutorial that I was doing to get y'all set up with motion matching and stuff like that. So one of the things that we did forget to do, or at least that I forgot to show y'all, is how to do these stops for the motion matching table. And so basically what you're going to do is you're going to go back into character, UA offend mannequin, and then go back into motion matching and reopen the database dents. And what you're going to do is you're going to go into the stands idle, and here is where you're going to then put in the asset for the sprint stops. So I'm going to go ahead and do sprint here and then look for stops, put that in there. I'm going to click it and highlight it. I'm going to move it up to the runs. So here I'm going to choose sprint, and here we're going to copy basically like the run stops and the walk stops. So I'm going to set this to 20 as my 2D minimum speed and just 999 for the for that. So I think in the video that I was doing for y'all, that's why we were failing the motion matching database, is because it couldn't find these stops. So that's what it was. So what we're going to do here is we're going to also change these to false, false, and then leave this onto any. And that's pretty much it for that setup. So now when y'all go to actually sprint or stop sprinting, that it should actually pull the correct database to stop y'all. So that's what I wanted to do with a quick update. So I do apologize for that. But other than that, guys, thank you for sticking with me to the end of this video. And again, y'all take care.